The Empire's confidence. The Haelor Empire had long ruled over the stars with a hand of iron. Their fleet was vast, their technology beyond anything the galaxy had ever seen. They were feared by all who crossed their path, and many civilizations had fallen under their might. To them, no challenge was too great, no enemy too strong. They were invincible. It was this confidence that led the Haelor Empire to make a fateful mistake. They underestimated humanity. Far from the Empire's central dominions, on the edges of known space, a small human vessel drifted quietly through the void. It was nothing special, a relic of older human technology, slow and unassuming. The Haelor Empire had been tracking this ship for days, curious about its strange, erratic course through their territory. A lone human ship, seemingly lost and out of place. The Haelor fleet commanders, sitting in the comfort of their grand starship, watched the human ship's movements with bemused interest. It was far too weak to pose any threat. To them, it was nothing more than an inconvenience, a potential target for a quick mission, a way to demonstrate their power. "Send a small detachment to deal with it," one of the commanders said, waving his hand dismissively. "Destroy it. Show them who rules this galaxy." No one in the Haelor fleet thought twice about it. They had fought against more advanced civilizations and always emerged victorious. They had crushed entire fleets and civilizations with ease. What chance did a single, outdated human ship have against the might of the Haelor Empire? The Haelor commander in charge of the mission, General Kroos, was confident. He had faced countless battles and had always emerged victorious. He knew his fleet, knew their weapons, knew that there was nothing in the universe that could stand against them. The Haelor fleet's starships, sleek and powerful, glided silently into position around the human vessel. They were closing in, ready to destroy it in one swift blow. General Kroos' eyes glinted with satisfaction as he surveyed the scene on his command screen. The human ship's primitive sensors hadn't even detected them yet. "This will be an easy one," he muttered to himself. He leaned back in his chair and began giving orders. "Fire," he commanded. The first shot was fired, a brilliant burst of energy that streaked through space and hit the human ship square in the center. A small explosion followed, the human ship's shields barely able to absorb the blow. It staggered for a moment, but the Haelor fleet knew that it was only a matter of seconds before the ship was completely destroyed. But to their surprise, the human ship didn't immediately fall apart. It didn't retreat or show any signs of fear. Instead, the ship's engines powered up. It began to move, faster than the Haelor had anticipated. General Kroos blinked in disbelief. "Impossible," he muttered. "How is it still moving?" He ordered another shot, more powerful this time. Again, the human ship took the blow but refused to fall. Instead, it fired back. A small shot compared to the Haelor fleet's massive weapons, but it was enough to scratch the paint of one of the Haelor ships. General Kroos clenched his fists in frustration. He had underestimated this ship, and now he was going to have to deal with it. But he still didn't worry. It was just a human ship after all. "Increase firepower," he barked. "Destroy it before it becomes any more of a nuisance." The Haelor fleet unleashed wave after wave of destructive fire, bombarding the human ship with everything they had. But the ship, despite being battered, refused to give up. It maneuvered with an agility that didn't make sense, dodging blasts and returning fire with deadly accuracy. "What in the universe is going on?" one of the Haelor officers asked, staring in disbelief at the screens. "This ship should be falling apart by now." General Kroos' patience was starting to wear thin. His pride, his confidence, had been shaken. The human ship was not acting like anything he had ever seen. It wasn't supposed to be able to do this. It wasn't supposed to survive this long. But survive it did. And the longer the human ship fought, the more General Kroos began to question his assumptions. The Haelor Empire had prided itself on its strength, its technology, and its superiority. Yet, here was a single human ship, defying all logic and expectations. "You," General Kroos said, turning to one of his officers. What's the status of the fleet? Why are we not wiping them out? The officer quickly began typing into the console, trying to understand the data. Their ship, it's using a kind of technology we've never encountered. It's not advanced, but it's strange. It's like they've been hiding something. General Cross's brow furrowed. Hiding something? What do you mean? It's difficult to explain, the officer stammered. But it's almost like their ship is adapting. Learning. We're not just fighting them. We're fighting something else. That was when General Cross felt a wave of realization wash over him. This wasn't just a human ship. It was something more. Something the Haelor Empire hadn't expected. The ship was using ancient human technology, technology that had been lost to the ages, technology that had been forgotten by the galaxy. Enough, General Cross muttered, his voice a low growl. He had been too confident, too sure of the Haelor Empire's superiority. He had thought that this would be another easy conquest, another example of their dominance. But instead, he found himself facing an enemy that was far more resourceful and dangerous than he had anticipated. "We're not done yet," he said, his voice cold. "Prepare for another attack. We will crush them. This is far from over." But deep inside, Cross knew that something had changed. The Haelor Empire had made a fatal mistake. They had underestimated humanity, and that mistake was about to cost them far more than they could ever imagine. The battle was far from over, and the Haelor Empire was about to learn a harsh lesson. Never underestimate the humans. General Cross stood in the heart of his flagship. His eyes narrowed as he observed the data streaming in from the battle outside. The human ship had managed to evade the Haelor fleet's best efforts for longer than anyone could have imagined. It had taken multiple hits, but it wasn't retreating. In fact, it seemed to be growing stronger with every exchange. Something was deeply wrong. "Status update," Cross barked, turning toward his officer. The officer, a young Haelor with short silver hair, hesitated. He had never seen his commander lose his cool like this before. His fingers flew over the controls as he tried to make sense of the chaos. "Sir, the human ship, it's adapting," he stammered. "It's not just dodging our attacks. It's actively countering them. I've never seen anything like this in my years of service." Cross's fists clenched. It was a rare thing for the Haelor to admit they were wrong, but here he stood, staring down at a situation that was spiraling out of control. A simple human ship, one that shouldn't even be a threat, was causing massive disruption to an entire fleet. "Increase firepower," Cross ordered again, though there was uncertainty in his voice. He couldn't afford to lose face in front of his officers. The fleet was watching. They needed a victory, and they needed it now. The Haelor ships around the human vessel began firing at an even faster rate, their weapons lighting up the dark expanse of space. For a moment, it seemed as though the human ship might finally give way. The shields flickered under the intense barrage, and it seemed like the inevitable collapse was at hand. But then, the impossible happened. The human ship did not fall. Instead, it surged forward, slipping through the blasts like a shadow. The crew on the Haelor ships watched, dumbfounded, as it moved with precision that defied logic. They could not keep up. It was almost as if the ship knew their every move before they made it. "How is this possible?" one of Cross's senior officers whispered. "It's not supposed to be possible," Cross muttered, his anger rising. He could feel the sting of his pride being chipped away. "We're not fighting a mere human ship. This is something else." The human ship fired back. Its weapons were primitive, small compared to the Haelor's devastating energy cannons, but it packed a surprising punch. One of the Haelor vessels took a direct hit to its engine core. A flash of light erupted as the ship's main power source overloaded, and the vessel exploded in a burst of debris. The sight of the ship's destruction left Cross momentarily stunned. He had never seen a Haelor ship destroyed like that. Not in battle. Not by an enemy as insignificant as this. What is that?" one of the officers asked, his voice trembling. It's human ingenuity," Cross answered grimly. This is no ordinary ship. They've weaponized something. Something we've overlooked. The Haelor fleet hesitated for a moment. This wasn't just a battle. It was a wake-up call. The mighty empire had been caught off guard by something so simple, so fundamental: human persistence. The human ship was not retreating. It was advancing, and with each passing minute, it became clearer that this wasn't a fight they were winning. Cross's mind raced. The Haelor Empire was built on its military supremacy, its technological advancements, and its unshakable confidence. This small human ship, this lone vessel, was doing the impossible. It was turning the tables. "We need to adjust our tactics," Cross said through gritted teeth. "We underestimated them, and now they're making us pay for it. Prepare the fleet for a full-on assault. We'll crush them before this gets worse." The Haelor ships reoriented, focusing all of their fire on the human vessel in a concentrated effort. But as they did, Cross couldn't shake the feeling that the tide of battle had already shifted. The human ship had shown a level of adaptability and resilience that the Haelor Empire had never expected. They were facing an opponent that didn't just fight to survive, they'd fought to win. And somewhere, far behind the Haelor fleet, the human ship's crew, small in number but fiercely determined, were preparing for their next move. They knew that this battle, this fight for survival, was far from over. They had been underestimated, and they planned to use that to their advantage. The humans had faced insurmountable odds before, and now they were about to show the Haelor Empire just what they were capable of. As the Haelor fleet regrouped and fired relentlessly, the human ship seemed to dance through the chaos. Its shields, battered but unbroken, flickered with each strike, but the ship remained a steadfast symbol of defiance. The crew, though vastly outnumbered, remained calm, their eyes locked on the screens, their hands steady. The captain of the human ship, a woman named Captain Emily Harper, was at the helm, directing every move with precision. "Status report, Lieutenant." Captain Harper's voice was firm, cutting through the tension that filled the command deck. The lieutenant, a young officer with dark brown hair, glanced nervously at the console in front of him. "Shields holding steady, Captain. But we're taking heavy damage. If this continues, we won't last much longer." "Then we don't let it continue," Harper said, her eyes narrowing as she focused on the battle unfolding before her. "All hands, brace for impact. It's time to turn the tables." She was no stranger to impossible odds. Humanity had faced challenges in the past that seemed insurmountable, but they had always found a way to prevail. This wasn't just another skirmish. It was a test of everything they had worked for: human ingenuity, adaptability, and sheer willpower. Harper gripped the control panel, feeling the ship shudder as another blast impacted its outer hull. But this time, the human ship did not retreat. Instead, it pivoted and sped toward the heart of the Haelor fleet. "Initiating counterattack," Harper called, her voice steady as she punched in the command. She knew the Haelor ships were expecting them to flee, to try and escape the onslaught. But that wasn't the human way. They would stand and fight, no matter the cost. The human ship's weapons flared to life, small but powerful, as it fired back at the Haelor vessels. The blasts were not as large as the Haelor's energy cannons, but their precision was deadly. A single shot hit one of the Haelor ships square in its vulnerable engine core, and the massive vessel erupted in a flash of light. Another one fell moments later, struck by another well-placed shot. The Haelor fleet, accustomed to being the apex predators in the galaxy, were now facing a threat they hadn't anticipated. "We did it," she whispered to herself, though her voice was barely audible. "We actually did it." Lieutenant Vega, standing beside her, nodded, but his face was etched with exhaustion. "Captain, this isn't over yet. The Haelor fleet might be defeated, but their command structure is still intact. They'll send reinforcements. We can't afford to relax." Harper's gaze hardened. She knew Vega was right. This was just one battle, not the end of the war. But for the first time in a long while, she allowed herself a brief moment of victory. "Let's make sure the Empire knows that we're not done yet," she said, her voice firm. "Yes, Captain," Vega replied. The human ship moved through the wreckage, scanning for any signs of surviving Haelor ships. They knew that the Haelor Empire would not take this defeat lightly. They would regroup and come back stronger. But the humans now had a glimmer of hope. They had struck a blow against an empire that had long considered itself invincible, and the ripple effects of that blow would reverberate across the galaxy. Meanwhile, back on the Haelor homeworld, General Kroos was in a fury. His once mighty fleet had been shattered, and the humans, those insignificant, weak creatures, had managed to accomplish what no one thought possible. His personal defeat was a blow to the Haelor Empire's pride, and he knew the consequences would be severe. "What have you done?" Kroos muttered under his breath as he paced in his war room. "We underestimated them, and now the galaxy will pay the price." His officers stood in silence, unsure of how to respond. The arrogance that had defined the Haelor Empire for centuries had led them to make critical mistakes, and now those mistakes had led to a devastating defeat. Kroos slammed his fist against the wall in frustration. "They think they've won, but this is far from over." The Haelor general's voice was low, filled with a dangerous resolve. "We will rebuild. We will send everything we have after them. And we will crush these humans once and for all." Back on the human ship, Captain Harper and her crew knew the fight wasn't over. They had dealt the Haelor Empire a crushing blow, but they also understood that the victory came with consequences. The Haelor would regroup, and they would be back. But the humans were ready. They had proven they could stand against the Haelor, and now they knew that they had the strength to face whatever came next. "Prepare the ship for the next phase," Harper ordered. "We've only begun this fight, and we're going to finish it." The crew moved into action, a sense of unity and purpose filling the air. Despite the heavy losses and the damage to their ship, they had a renewed sense of determination. They were no longer just fighting for survival. They were fighting for victory, for a future where the Haelor Empire no longer ruled with fear. As the ship moved toward the next battle, a new resolve filled the hearts of the humans. They had taken down the Haelor fleet once, and they would do it again. This time, they would not be caught off guard. This time, they would be the ones who dictated the terms of the war. And as they sailed deeper into the unknown, the humans could feel the weight of what they had achieved. They had proven that, despite the odds, they were a force to be reckoned with, a force that would no longer be underestimated by anyone, not even the mighty Haelor Empire. The Haelor Empire was not one to back down easily, and General Kroos knew this defeat was only a temporary setback. He sat at his desk, staring at the holographic map of the galaxy before him. The wreckage of the fleet was still fresh in his mind, and the humiliation of his failure burned in his chest. The humans had won this battle, but Kroos would ensure they would not have the luxury of victory again. "Status report," Kroos growled, his voice cold and commanding. An officer quickly approached, her expression grim. "The human ship is still intact, General, but their shipyards are damaged, and their resources are spread thin. We have time to regroup." Kroos clenched his fists. "Time? We don't have time. We need to hit them now, while they think they're safe." He turned his gaze to a screen showing the vastness of the galaxy. The humans had proven themselves a formidable adversary, but he was confident that the Haelor could crush them if given the right leverage. The humans were weak in comparison to the Haelor, and their victory had been more luck than strategy. "We will strike back, and we will hit them where it hurts the most. I want a full-scale attack. Everything we have," Kroos ordered. "The humans may have won the battle, but we will win this war." Back on Earth, the humans were preparing for the aftermath of the Haelor assault. Captain Harper had gathered her crew in the briefing room. Their victory had come at a heavy cost. Some of their best soldiers had fallen in the fight, and their ship was badly damaged. Yet they had survived, and now they were preparing for the next chapter of the war. "We're not out of the woods yet," Captain Harper said, her tone serious. "The Haelor Empire doesn't take defeat lightly. We've only scratched the surface, and they'll come for us with everything they've got." Lieutenant Vega nodded. "We need to be ready. We've seen their strength, but now we know they can be beaten." Harper looked at her crew, a small smile breaking through her serious demeanor. "Exactly. They think they have the advantage, but they're wrong. We've shown them what we're capable of. We've struck a blow, and now we'll strike again." The room filled with quiet determination. The humans may have been outnumbered, but they had something the Haelor Empire lacked: resilience, creativity, and the will to survive against all odds. It was those very qualities that had made them dangerous, and they would use them to their advantage. As the human crew worked to make repairs and prepare for the next battle, they couldn't shake the feeling that they were being watched. Every move they made seemed to be under a microscope, and though they tried to ignore it, the Haelor Empire's looming presence hung over them like a dark cloud. Meanwhile, the Haelor fleet was being assembled once again. Their pride had been wounded, and their emperor demanded retribution. The Haelor soldiers were angry, their minds consumed by the need for vengeance. The galaxy had witnessed the humans' victory, but that victory had come at a steep price. Now it was time for the Haelor to remind the universe who truly ruled. General Crows stood in the war room, giving his final orders. "The humans think they're safe, but we will show them just how far their overconfidence will take them. Launch everything. Bring the full force of the Haelor Empire to bear. This time, they won't escape." The fleet began to mobilize, warships and battlecruisers cutting through space with terrifying speed. The Haelor Empire was coming for Earth, and they were bringing their wrath with them. Nothing would stand in their way. The humans had made a fatal mistake by underestimating them, and now it was time to make them pay. As the Haelor ships powered up their weapons and prepared for their assault, Captain Harper and her crew stood ready. The stage was set for a confrontation that would decide the fate of both empires. The Haelor Empire had underestimated humanity once, but they would soon learn that the humans would never back down. The countdown had begun, and the final showdown was imminent. Back in the dark depths of space, the two forces prepared to clash once again. The humans had defeated the Haelor fleet once, but now they would face a renewed empire, angrier and more determined than ever. This time, victory would not come so easily. Captain Harper's eyes burned with determination as she watched the stars outside the viewport. "We will protect Earth. We will show them that no matter how powerful they think they are, they will never defeat humanity." The tension was thick in the air as the human ship's engines roared to life. The battle for survival had reached its peak, and neither side was willing to back down. The Haelor Empire's fury had been unleashed, but humanity's will to fight was stronger than ever. The war was about to reach its breaking point. As the Haelor fleet neared Earth, the silence in the human command center was deafening. The crew had braced for the worst, but their determination was palpable. Captain Harper stood at the helm, her gaze fixed on the holographic map of space. The Haelor Empire's ships were massive and well-armed, their intentions clear: total annihilation. "We know what's coming," Captain Harper said, her voice steady but filled with conviction. "But we're not backing down. Not now. Not ever." Lieutenant Vega, his face drawn with fatigue, turned to her. "We've been through worse. We'll face them together. This time, we're prepared." Harper nodded, her hand resting on the console. "We've learned from the last battle. We'll be ready for anything they throw at us." The entire crew had been working around the clock, making final repairs and preparing new strategies. Earth's defense systems had been bolstered, and a fleet of smaller ships had been assembled to support the battle. Despite the damage to their ship and the losses they had suffered, humanity's resolve was unbreakable. Suddenly, an officer's voice cut through the tension. "Captain, the Haelor fleet is entering our space. They're within striking distance." Harper's heart raced, but her voice remained calm. "Launch the fleet. Prepare all defensive measures. We stand our ground." With a series of commands, the human fleet began to mobilize. Ships powered up, their engines roaring as they surged into position. The defensive turrets on Earth's surface hummed to life, sending pulses of energy into the sky, ready to defend the planet against any assault. The Haelor Empire had underestimated humanity once, and now they would face the consequences. Their fleet, once full of confidence and superiority, was about to come face to face with the one thing they hadn't accounted for, the strength of human resilience. As the Haelor ships approached, General Crows stood at the bridge of his flagship, staring at the earth below. His mind burned with rage, his thoughts consumed by the need to avenge the earlier defeat. The human victory had shaken his empire to its core, but this time there would be no escape. They would crush Earth's defenses and prove once and for all that no species could defy the Haelor Empire. "Prepare for the assault," Cross ordered, his voice sharp and commanding. "We will not fail again." The fleet began to power up its weapons. The Haelor ships were designed for destruction, their weaponry powerful enough to obliterate entire planets. But this time, there was something different in the air, something the Haelor had not anticipated. Humanity's spirit. Captain Harper watched as the Haelor ships closed in. The tension was palpable, the quiet hum of the engines the only sound in the command room. But despite the fear that lingered in the air, there was also a sense of unity, a collective understanding that they would fight with everything they had. "We won't be beaten this time," Harper said to her crew, her voice filled with quiet resolve. "We'll hold the line, no matter what." With a final glance at the earth below, Harper gave the order. "Fire." The first shot was fired, and the Earth's defenses erupted in a brilliant burst of energy. A shield of energy pulses shot into space, crashing into the Haelor ships. The battle had begun. On the Haelor flagship, General Crows stared at the human defenses in disbelief. They'd fortified their planet, but it's too late. "We will break them." He raised a hand, signaling his fleet to fire. The sky was soon filled with a torrent of deadly energy as the Haelor unleashed their full power on Earth's defenses. The resulting explosions lit up the darkness of space, illuminating the vast void between the two empires. Captain Harper braced herself as the blasts rocked her ship. The crew worked furiously at their stations, coordinating their counterattacks and defending their home. The human ships weaved through the incoming fire, narrowly avoiding the Haelor's deadly beams. "We're holding strong," Vega shouted, his voice tight with tension. "But they're relentless. We need more firepower." "Activate the secondary defense grid," Harper commanded, "and keep the pressure on them. They won't expect us to fight like this." The battle raged on, with the Haelor fleet continuing to bombard Earth's defenses. Yet, despite the odds, humanity stood firm. Every strike was met with a counterattack, every inch of space fiercely defended. General Crow's frustration grew with each passing moment. "Why aren't they breaking?" he muttered. "We've unleashed everything we have, and they're still standing." The Haelor had not expected the tenacity of human resistance. They had come to Earth expecting an easy victory. But instead, they had encountered a force that would not yield. The human spirit, their will to survive, was proving to be far stronger than the Haelor had anticipated. As the battle stretched on, the Haelor fleet began to show signs of fatigue. Their weapons had been firing relentlessly, but the energy required to maintain their offensive was taking its toll. Earth's defenses, meanwhile, were still holding strong, thanks to the ingenuity and determination of the humans who fought to protect their planet. Captain Harper's eyes narrowed as she watched the Haelor fleet retreat slightly, sensing an opportunity. "They're weakening," she said, her voice steady. "Now's our chance. Prepare to counterattack." With a single command, the human fleet launched their offensive. Their ships surged forward, cutting through the darkness of space. The Haelor fleet, momentarily taken aback by the humans' resilience, began to fall back. But General Crows was not ready to admit defeat. "We will not retreat," he snarled. "We will crush them." He rallied his fleet for one final push, But the humans were already ready. Earth's defenders fought back with everything they had, turning the tide of battle in their favor. The Haelor Empire's overconfidence had led them to believe they would crush humanity in a single strike. But they had learned the hard way that humanity's spirit could not be easily broken. As the battle continued, it was clear that the Haelor Empire had underestimated humanity's resolve. They had come to Earth with the intention of wiping out humanity once and for all, but they had found an opponent far more formidable than they had ever imagined. The war was far from over, but the humans had shown that they would never back down from the fight. The battle had reached a critical point, and the once confident Haelor Empire was beginning to buckle under the weight of humanity's unyielding defense. The human fleet, despite their smaller numbers and fewer resources, had proved to be a far more capable opponent than the Haelor could have ever imagined. Captain Harper stood at the bridge of her ship, her eyes focused on the chaos unfolding outside. The enemy fleet was now on the defensive, retreating slowly as they attempted to regroup. Their ships were damaged, their weapons failing, and their morale shattered. The tables had turned. "Prepare to advance," Harper commanded, her voice calm but with an edge of determination. "Let's finish this." The human ship surged forward, pushing through the debris-filled battlefield. The Haelor fleet was scattered and disorganized. They had underestimated Earth, thinking that their sheer power and overwhelming numbers would guarantee victory. But humanity's resilience, ingenuity, and sheer will had proved otherwise. The Haelor Empire, for all their might, was on the verge of collapse. General Kroos, aboard his flagship, had witnessed the tide of the battle turn. His once confident posture had faltered, and now his hands trembled with frustration. He barked orders at his subordinates, but his voice lacked the force it once had. The human fleet was relentless, and there was no escaping the overwhelming pressure they were now facing. "We need to retreat," Kroos shouted. "We've underestimated them. This is no ordinary species." But it was too late. The human fleet had already closed in. Earth's defenders weren't just fighting for survival. They were fighting for the future of their species. Every shot fired was a testament to their resolve. Every explosion a symbol of their defiance. "Prepare to fire on their flagship," Captain Harper ordered, her voice resolute. "It's time to end this." The human ships locked onto the Haelor flagship, their weapons charging. Kroos could see the attack coming, but he was powerless to stop it. His empire, once mighty and feared, was crumbling before his eyes. "No," Kroos shouted, his voice filled with rage and disbelief. "We are the Haelor. We cannot lose." But the human fleet had already launched a series of devastating strikes. The Haelor flagship shuddered under the assault, its hull groaning as the energy beams tore through its defenses. The once imposing ship began to break apart, its massive structure crumbling under the weight of humanity's relentless attack. As the flagship of the Haelor Empire fell into disarray, Captain Harper watched the spectacle unfold with grim satisfaction. The battle was not yet over, but this victory was a significant blow to the Haelor's ambitions. They had come to Earth expecting an easy conquest, but instead they had found themselves outmatched by a species they had dismissed as insignificant. "We did it," Vega said, his voice filled with awe as he watched the Haelor fleet retreating. "We actually did it." Harper's eyes remained focused on the battlefield, her expression unwavering. "This is just the beginning. We've shown them that we're not to be underestimated, but we still have a long road ahead." The Haelor Empire, shaken by their defeat, began to retreat into the depths of space. Their fleet, once mighty and proud, was now a shattered remnant of its former self. The human fleet, though battered and scarred, stood victorious. They had held their ground against an empire that had sought to crush them, and they had proven that the strength of the human spirit could not be easily extinguished. As the battle raged on, humanity's victory sent a powerful message across the galaxy. Earth was not a planet to be trifled with. The Haelor Empire had made a fatal error in underestimating the human race, and now they would pay the price. But Captain Harper knew that this was only the beginning of a much larger conflict. The Haelor Empire might retreat for now, but their defeat would not go unnoticed. Other empires would see what had happened here today, and Earth's enemies would no doubt seek revenge. "We have won a battle," Harper said, her voice filled with both pride and caution. "But the war is far from over. Humanity had proved itself against a seemingly unbeatable enemy, but the true test was yet to come. The Haelor Empire may have suffered a crushing defeat, but there were always others. Other threats lurking in the vast reaches of space, waiting for the right moment to strike." As the human fleet watched the last remnants of the Haelor retreat, a sense of triumph swept over the crew. But they knew that the fight was far from finished. The galaxy was a dangerous place, and Earth would need to remain vigilant. The human race had shown its strength, but it would need to continue to adapt, to grow stronger, if it hoped to survive the challenges that lay ahead. In the end, it wasn't just about defeating the Haelor Empire. It was about sending a message to the galaxy that humanity would never back down. They would fight, they would survive, and they would protect their home, no matter the cost. And as the last of the Haelor ships disappeared into the void, Captain Harper looked out at the stars, knowing that Earth's place in the universe had just been forever changed. The fight was far from over, but humanity had taken the first step in ensuring its place among the stars.